and publicity that's gained early on, and then I think it just grows from there.
You know, it's hard to say what it is about this case that has caught the imagination of people all over the place.
By the way, your friend, Jay Alowski, Pasta Jay, the man you went into business with, he's out here attacking people. But Pasta Jay got mad and took a bat to him and then tried to pull the piece on him.
We have different roles. My job as a district attorney under the state constitution is not to do the primary investigation in the case.
Lou's role, no matter how convicted he felt about it, was secondary. Your role is supportive. Okay, so I was going through the daily camera stuff, and we've been dealing with this stuff from the DA, and I think one of the videos we talked about the DA's responsibilities, and we kind of looked at back in 1997 when there was a press brief by the BPD. I guess the spokeswoman for the police she was kind of saying that the DA is advising the BPD on kind of what to look for. They're kind of working together collaboratively on that. And so I got to looking at the daily cameras archives, and this is kind of one of the things that I walked into. So here we go. And it's on the new investigation.
So it's a one-of-a-kind case. That in itself is going to attract attention. I think the brutality of the crime attracts attention.
And if you don't know who this is
I think the
Chief Beckner, and this is Stan Garrett, I think.
Brutality of the crime attracts attention. I think the social standing of the family, the beauty pageant connection, all those things combined, and then you had the fact that the family went on national TV soon after the case. That
okay, 16 years ago.
Attracts attention, and when you add all those things together, I think you're going to build interest in those kinds of cases, and you see it all over the country. I mean, there are children killed every day in this country. There are people killed every day in this country. What makes one case more interesting or more important than the other? Well, nothing makes one case more important than the other, but the attraction that some cases attract are due to those unusual circumstances and publicity that's gained early on, and then I think it just grows from there.
You know, it's hard to say what it is about this case that has caught the imagination of people all over the place. I will say this, some of the tips are, you know, psychics, that sort of thing. Others are things that somebody needs to look at closely and follow up. And again, you know, I think what's important here from a structural point of view are two things. One is that the DA's office and the Boulder Police Department are going to work together collaboratively and move forward, and both Chief Beckner and I are very committed to that. The second thing is we have different roles. My job as a district attorney under the state constitution is to look at evidence that's brought to me and make a decision about whether or not there's enough evidence to file a case. And if there is, and we file a case, my job is to then be committed to that. The second thing is we have different roles. My job as a district attorney under the state constitution.
Oh, I was wondering what she was doing. I was like, who is that? But it's kind of, he's talking, but they're still letting the video go. And it's not necessarily at this point, the video is attached to the audio. Okay, I was like, what is she doing? But she's asking a question. Okay, makes sense.
Is to look at evidence that's brought to me and make a decision about whether or not there's enough evidence to file a case. And if there is, and we file a case, my job is to then pursue that and get a just result in court. The DA's office job is not to do the primary investigation in the case.
We're bringing in people on this task force that are going to have a fresh perspective.
And if there is, and we file a case, the DA's office and the Boulder Police Department are going to work together collaboratively and move forward, and both Chief Beckner and I are very committed to that. The second thing is we have different roles. My job as a district attorney under the state constitution is to look at evidence that's brought to me and make a decision about whether or not there's enough evidence to file a case. And if there is, and we file a case, my job is to then pursue that and get a just result in court. The DA's office job is not to do the primary investigation in the case.
We're bringing in people on this task force.
Did he say that the DA's primary job is to not do the primary investigation?
Not to do the primary investigation in the case.
We're bringing
Stan, why would you say that? Stan. If the DA under the Constitution, the state constitution, maybe it changed, because if this was in 2010, okay, so, and this is me assuming that nothing has changed in terms of the DA's job. So if Stan is saying that my job is not to do the primary investigation, which would mean in that sense that we would automatically assume that the DA's job is to do some sort of secondary investigation, which would be why Lou Smith was brought in. But eventually, what we might be able to infer based on everything that we know and everything that happened is that eventually Lou Smith, which was the secondary investigation, along with some of the other attorneys, but Lou Smith, I think, was really kind of the only investigator in that office. Could be wrong. I'm not tied to that idea, because I think everybody else in the office, I think they were DA and DA adjacent, his advisors. But at any rate, Lou was the most prominent investigator that I'm aware of in that office. And so basically, Lou's role, no matter how convicted he felt about it, was secondary. And I guess what I'm thinking about when I think about secondary, a secondary role, is that your role is supportive in some way. Your role is not to steal the show or be the star of the show. Your role is to support the efforts. If we're trying to work collaboratively, your role is not to try to steal the show or be the star of the show, right? You might have to deal with that kind of ego when you bring somebody like Lou Smith in. Of course, you know that Lou Smith has been a long time. His reputation precedes him. So if you know that this man has an extensive track record of being the number one guy, and then you bring him into an investigation where he's having to play second fiddle, that might be a problem, because the Boulder police have the primary investigation in terms of collecting the evidence and things of that nature. You work with them, you work through them. That's what you're supposed to do. But somewhere along the line, the two parties lost trust in each other. And this is what Alex Hunter did. Instead of trying hard to mend the fences between the two agencies, Alex Hunter just continued with his theory. They fought and fought and fought until, and the only reason that they came back together was the public scrutiny that said, this case is taking too long to solve. We need to get back to the drawing board, and we need you guys to move the case along. Fleet White, Judith Phillips, Steve Thomas all went to the governor and said, enough is enough. The people of Colorado, the nation, the world said, enough is enough. Move this along. I gotta say again, where are the cops in this? Move this along, DA, governor, find a way to move it. And the governor's like, man, I don't know what to do. But all of a sudden, as soon as the people got involved, and really, honestly and truly, it wasn't until Steve Thomas or Fleet White, I think it was Steve Thomas's letter that blew up and exploded, where people were like, hey. And it's not that Steve Thomas was so important in this. I'm not saying that he was unimportant. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think it's that Steve Thomas was so important. I think it's just that Steve Thomas was saying what everybody was thinking. And everybody was thinking like, man, it feels like they're stalling us a little bit. And then Fleet jumped on, and then Judith jumped on. And then everybody was like, yeah, because, you have Fleet and Priscilla who add credibility to Steve Thomas. Like, if the police think that there's a stall, we can argue back and forth. Oh, the DA says one thing, but the police say another. We can argue back and forth, and he said, she said kind of deal. Everybody said kind of deal. But when Fleet and Priscilla jump on there, I mean, you got us thinking now. And then when Judith Phillips jumps on, then all of a sudden, oh, we might actually need to do something before more calls start to mount. Alex, don't let this become a problem. Let's get this moving. And so now they start to look into the grand jury process. Why do we look into the grand jury process now? And it calls into question, like we've talked about before, whether it's truly about the investigative process, the use for the tool being for an investigative process because we stalled, or is it a process more for DA Hunter to move forward, in a sense that I cannot go back through the Boulder Police Department because that relationship is severed. I can't go back over there. And so the only move, and I'm not going to drop my pride, I'm not going to go say sorry. The only move that I have to move forward now is the grand jury, because I have one guy. If you thought, come on, talk to me. Come on. Because, look, you have Detective Lou Smith working for the district attorney. He claims that he has 200 wins in homicide. On the other hand, you have the police who say, man, not a lot has been going on in terms of homicides. So, I mean, we try to solve what we can. Over the period of like 1990, like to 1995, I think they said they had like 15 homicides. 13 of those were solved. So I think that's like 85%. Now, it's not as much as Lou Smith, right? In the 200, and it's not 100% like Lou Smith. If you did 200 where you won all 200, I got to give you props for that. Absolutely. But, in the little case examples that the BPD has been able to experience, they said, man, look, we have shown that we are starting to gain a propensity for solving these homicide cases. They mentioned, I think in one of the reports, like one of the press release reports, they said, look, man, worldwide or nationwide, the solve rate or the case conclusion rate is like 65%, and with the 15 cases that we got, we're at 85%, right? So even though you think they're incompetent, even though you don't think they're doing anything, man, I think I've read within the same report, and I guess I'll present it at some point in time, but I read within the same report, man, Colorado spent like $1.6 million. The city of Boulder spent over the course of the investigation from 96, I think over like 4 years or something like that, maybe more. They spent like a total of like $1.6 million to try to fund efforts for this investigation. They tried to bring in the FBI, they tried to bring in the CBI, they tried to bring in independent investigators to kind of assist in everything that they were doing. That's all I'm saying. Like, the police are out there, they're doing work. They're doing work. And like I said, we'll go through the report, but it's very fascinating indeed. So here we go.
We're bringing in people on this task force that are going to have a fresh perspective. There are people that have never worked on this case, who are well-known in the law enforcement and district attorney field, who can come in and look at this case, lay out the evidence on the table, and tell us what they think. Challenge us, ask us questions, give us ideas. I think to say anything, I would have to get into the evidence. I don't want to do that. And secondly, I don't want to set any expectations or biases for people coming into this committee. If the police chief stands here and says, I think this or I think that, they may come in with some bias. We don't want that. When you have a small girl of that age, I think it touches everybody's heart. And we'd love to solve this case for JonBenét so that she can rest in peace. That's really been our focus and our goal all along. And, you know, whenever you can't solve a case for a period of time, and this one's certainly gone on a long time, it's frustrating for everybody involved. We do this job because we want to see justice, and we want to see justice for victims. And when you can't attain that, it gets frustrating.
So essentially, Chief Beckner is kind of referring to in those closing moments, he's referring to this idea that, and I guess so this is in like 2010, I think, could be wrong, but essentially what he's referring to is the fact that they brought in a new task force, kind of had to say goodbye to the old task force. In the press release file, where they're kind of looking at, where you can go look at all the press releases, he kind of talks about, hey, yeah, man, I do acknowledge that Steve Thomas did resign. I don't like it. I'm frustrated. And then, you know, when Steve Thomas's letter got out, you know, he acknowledged that and said, man, I think we're doing good work here at the police department. I think that, you know, even though Steve disagrees or is frustrated with the efforts, I think we're trying to work pretty well with the DA. And so I think we're making some progress, but maybe not everything that or all the progress that we want to make. But as I'm looking more and more into the information, and I'm looking through the police case file, you can see, and I appreciate their daily updates, or, you know, weekly updates at least, but you can start to see it's essentially good because the police document and the media relations manager, I can't remember her name right now, but, you know, she's for immediate release, press release, for immediate release, sort of, and it's kind of like a diary almost, or documentation to the public, you know, the transparency, and it's out there. These are press releases. So it's crazy to me that John Ramsey sits in an interview and says he doesn't know anything. That is crazy, because we have press releases all the way back to 1996 about this case. And this is literally the cops telling you once or twice, maybe 3 times a week, what's going on with this case. They are outright telling you who we're considering, how many people we're considering. Here's the budget that we've spent so far on this case. These are the states that we've gone to. These are the people that we followed up with. We made an arrest here. Oh, and by the way, your friend, Jay Alowski, Pasta Jay, the man you went into business with, he's out here attacking people. Got a couple people, got a couple engineers sitting in their car minding their business. But Pasta Jay got mad. Jay Alowski got mad at people sitting outside and, oh, you guys are attacking my friend, and took a bat to him. And then tried to pull the piece. That's what he said. He tried to pull the piece on him. You know what I mean? Like, wait, you trying to pull something on me? Said he went to his car and tried to pull a piece on him. But, you know, at this time, the people that he attacked, the 2 engineers that he attacked, they got out the car and followed him over to the car like, what's up? You know what I mean? What we doing? And when you know, Jay realized that somebody was on to him, or somebody was on his trail, he said, hey man, look, you know, I got something in a brown paper bag for you. You know, you don't really want this smoke. And the individuals turned around and went their own ways. But, you know, I think they were considering charging Jay for some form of disorderly conduct, I want to say. I can't remember the exact name, but, you know, essentially my point is that he was standing up for the Ramseys and trying to attack. And then kind of lastly, when we think about like how this investigation was stalled, we can think of one of the things that I sort of glossed over was this whole thing about Susan Stein emailing under Chief Beckner's, I think his personal email is what she was emailing under. And it's crazy because, and she was emailing, I think Michael or Chris Brennan or something like that. Guy's last name is Brennan, and he's from the Rocky Mountain News, or he was from the Rocky Mountain News at the time in '03, I think it was. And you know, the Ramseys are good, and they're going to Atlanta, and police are struggling to get interviews with them. I think about the Ramseys didn't really agree to an interview until like May the 16th or something like that of 1997. They didn't agree to a formal interview. I think they were going back and forth with the police on that. And then obviously later on, you ran into some headwinds when you were trying to get the Ramseys to take a polygraph test. So the interference that has been run on this is wild. But here we are in 2010 with the police and the district attorney giving another update on what's happening in the case. As we just saw in 2024, chief of police, newest chief of police, you know, giving an update on the Ramsey case. This stuff is open and available. It's information. And what I think Chief Colby said, I think it was Chief Colby. Yeah, I think it was Chief Colby. You know, after, you know, I think it was around January 7th or something like that. I can't remember the exact day, but it was after the CNN interview. And essentially what they were saying was, first of all, you know, ain't nobody out here that's doing any serial behavior and unaliving people. There's nobody out here that's doing that. I don't know why the Ramsey families would do that. Second of all, or say that. Second of all, they were on behalf of the BPD, they were shocked and surprised to see the Ramseys on television on CNN on January the 1st. They were shocked because they were like, hey man, we've been trying to talk to you since the murder. And then as they go on to say, which I knew because the motivation and the behavior is there, they said, man, we were still trying to look at some forensics in the case. However, John Nim wanted to scurry off to Atlanta. So, you know, we released the body of JonBenét on the 29th, and they scurried off to Atlanta on the 29th, probably later on that night. And then, you know, the 30th, you get the body prepped and ready to go. You scope out a spot. Maybe you already know a spot, but you scope out a spot and you get ready to go, whatever you do. And you take time to just sit down and focus on how life is going to, you know, impact you or change tomorrow based on burying JonBenét. So I appreciate the update. This is interesting. Going to continue moving forward, kind of looking at other updates and stuff like that. So stay tuned. Like always, like, share, subscribe, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. And until next video, take it easy.